Hello everyone, welcome back to another tutorial. In today's tutorial I am going to recreate the series where I teach you how to script on Roblox Studio. I will try to make this series the best I can so you guys can understand in the best way possible. So I'm gonna keep this simple. I'm going to use real life examples so you can get a hang of how it looks in real life examples, as well as more simple examples so you can understand. So with that being said, please consider subscribing, like this video, and let's jump straight into it. So I'm supposing you already are a bit familiar with how the Roblox UI layout works. Here we got the Explorer and the properties. If you don't have the Explorer and the properties, open them up in the view and here. You will also use the output a ton of times. Don't hang up on these messages. It's just plugins and etc. that I have, so you won't probably have. Yours will look like this. So first of all, in this episode I'm gonna teach you what printing and what variables are. So inside of the server script service, here we are usually putting scripts, and in later episodes I'm gonna talk more about this, but there is client scripts and there is server scripts. And a server script looks like this. It's just a regular script. So inside of the script here, you can rename this by right clicking and press rename or F2 as a shortcut. We do not need to rename it. When you open this script for the first time, it will say print hello world. And what this does is that if we go and press on this little arrow here and we press on run, we do not need to press on play, because then our player will load, and we do not need that for this. So if we press on run and we open the output up, you can see how it prints hello world in the console. No one will see this besides you. So if you go ahead and change this message, for example, and we can change this to hello, my name is RBX, and if I press on run now, you will see how this gets printed in the output. And you may ask, why do we use this if no one sees it? And printing is really good for debugging code, and you will see that in the later episodes. But if you want to see if something runs or not, you can print, because if something breaks in your code, the code will stop. So you can see where the code stops by printing. So it's very useful for you as a developer to debug your code, basically. Then we have variables, and a variable is basically a way to store something in a name. So for example, instead of having to say 14 every time, this is a pretty bad example, but for example, we can say local food. So local, you always, when you type on variable, you say local. Well, not always, but almost every time you're trying to do a variable, you say local. There's basically a global variable and there is a local variable, but we're going to use this for now. So local food, so this is the name of your variable. So basically think of it like a box. You put tape on the box and you write a name so you know what's in the box. So for example, I could say I can rename my box to kitchen things, and you can't have space in Lua. It would throw an error. So you could like say kitchen things like this. You could say kitchen things like this. It's a preference. I'm going to go with this, kitchen things. And now I want to put something in this box, basically. So for example, I can put my knife, for example. And since we do not have we haven't defined the knife, we do not have a knife model or something, we will just use a string. And a string is basically just text. So in order to do a text, you do quotation marks. And here I could say knife. So what this does now is that kitchen things, whenever I am using kitchen things, it will be knife. So for example, if I print kitchen things, this will print knife since we set this variable to knife. So if I go ahead and run, you will see how knife gets printed out in the output. And you can set this to multiple things. I could set this to, for example, I could add a number. So kitchen things equals 8. And if I go ahead and run, we see how 8 gets printed out. And if I, for example, I could also set it to a boolean, which is true or false. It's very easy. You could either say false or you can say true. So if I say true, this will print out true. So it's very easy. So if we go ahead, we can try to do an example right here. So for example, local number 1 equals 4, and local number 2 equals 6, for example. And you can't, by the way, you can't put a number before the variable name. You will have to use a letter. You can't use a number in the start of a variable. Great. So number 1 and number 2. So if we go ahead and print this now, or we could use another variable if we want to. We could say local result. And local result is equal to, and we could, in this variable, we can use other variables as well. So we could say local result is equals number 1 plus number 2. Just like this. And this will print out 10, obviously. So if we go and print result, you can see how this prints 10. And we could also, instead of using the variable, we could just say print number 1 plus number 2. And this would work the same. We could as well just print 6 plus 4. It's the same, but we use variables to store things. So we can use it multiple times instead of having to write the same. So I'm basically going to show you how this works in a real life example. And it's okay if you don't understand everything I'm doing right now, just that you have a hang of how this works. So I'm gonna add a part inside of the workspace. I'm gonna rename this part to my part. And inside of the script, since the part is placed in the workspace, I am going to say, I can say workspace dot my part, and I want to print the name of this part. And in the properties, this is every property this part has. So in the properties, we have something called, let me find it, name. So I'm gonna just say a dot and then name. And you can see here, if I just put a dot, you can see every property that it has. And we can also see some events that this part have. But I'm gonna say name. And I'm gonna print this. So I'm gonna print workspace my part of name. And this will obviously print my part. If I go back into the script, you can see how this is not efficient, since I will have to, every time I want to use my part, I will have to say workspace of my part dot But if we use a variable instead, local part equals workspace of my part. Now I can just say part dot name instead of having to say workspace of my part, because part is set to this. So if I print this now, you will see how this prints my part. I could also print another property For example, I could print the size of this. So workspace.size, and you can see how this prints the size of it. So that's basically how a variable works. It's very easy, very efficient, and yeah, you can also say local part comma color or something, name comma color. So you can set it to multiple equals maybe my part, and the color is green. So this also works. You can make multiple variables in one, but I would say this is more efficient. Local my name equals my part, and local color equals green, because this is more structured for me, but it's preference wise. So that's basically how variables and printing works. If you got any questions, please ask them down in the description. I'm willing to help, as well as my Discord, so join the Discord if you got any questions. And stay tuned for the other video or the other episode. So with that being said, take care guys, and I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.